Hello folks, and welcome back to Motivated Investing. There are different types of bias to consider when understanding Bitcoin and its price. You are trying to talk about Bitcoin. All you hear is fear, uncertainty or doubt, FUD. When you try to explain Bitcoin, his eyes become glassy. Often, non-coin or altcoin makers just don't want to hear about Bitcoin. Cognitive bias in games. Let's analyze and understand the cognitive bias that FUD and noise allow. Once they understand this, we can try to get rid of the prejudice. Cognitive bias is defined as a systematic pattern of deviations from norms or rationality in judgment. Individuals create their own subjective reality from the perception of input. The construction of an individual's reality, rather than objective access, can determine his actions in the world. In short, our judgments are often not as accurate as expected. To understand the systematic flaws in people's Bitcoin judgment, let's first look at the 4 biases surrounding Bitcoin prices. Availability and acceptability bias. Bitcoin is too volatile. If the price of Bitcoin changes slightly, there are articles in all news sources, often written in hysterical language. The availability of information cannot be hidden. This is a prejudice about availability. An example of what comes to you is the tendency of humans to think that they are more representative, truth, than they really are. I also have a recent memory of an article about Bitcoin volatility. This is the current bias, the cognitive bias that favors recent events rather than historical ones. One way to reduce the bias on availability is to look at more data. One way to reduce current bias is to analyze more data over time. Taking a step back and looking at Bitcoin price data, the number of prices is constantly increasing. Many. Looking at Bitcoin, it can fluctuate in a short amount of time, but the price of Bitcoin is steadily rising over time. Buy and hold is standard advice on the stock market. Do the same with Bitcoin. Buy and hold. Or, as Bitcoiner says, HODL. This is because in the long run, the number will increase. Unit bias. Next is the unit bias. The concept that buyers are attracted to buying a complete unit of a particular currency, not a decimal. Many people think that Bitcoin should be bought in its entirety. They do not know that the smallest unit of Bitcoin is not 1 BTC. 1 Satoshi, easily sitting. We know. 100 cents equals $1. In a similar way we can say 100 million rate equals 1 BTC. If you buy 0.00034500 BTC, due to the bias of the unit, it seems like a trivial, useless amount. Focus only on the least right quality to eliminate drive bias. It's much more attractive to buy 34,500 pieces, even though they are exactly the same amount of Bitcoin. People should first strive to be millionaires, 0.01 BTC, and then perhaps someday turn their eyes on to raise enough money to get full Bitcoin. You don't have to look at your property in a small part of BTC. Just stack. Anchor bias. Looking at the recent price of Bitcoin, it's easy to think fixedly at that price. It's too late. The price is too high. I should have bought it 5 or 10 years ago. The advantage of anchors is when individual decisions are influenced by a particular reference point or anchor. $100 Bitcoin, it's too late to buy Bitcoin. $1,000 Bitcoin, it's too late to buy Bitcoin. $10,000 Bitcoin, it's too late to buy Bitcoin. This trajectory actually shows how to deflect the anchor bias. Zoom out and select another anchor. You can also talk to more people to get different perspectives and fix different numbers. Alternatively, you can look at other similar areas to make sure that the anchor number should not be an impediment. Looking at the stock market, the Dow was $15,000, but was it too late to buy? If Bitcoin is $100,000, is it too late to buy Bitcoin for $50,000? Retrospective prejudice, or we knew it all. After that, prejudice continued on the general tendency of people to consider past events to be more predictable than they really are. How many people claim that Bitcoin prices will always rise by $30,000, $40,000 and $50,000? My bet is that the same people sit clean and know that Bitcoin will end up at $100,000, $150,000, and $200,000. Hindsight bias is the bias that all current Bitcoin professionals want to experience about Bitcoin prices. There is no need to eliminate prejudice. Leave people for fun. We only looked at one set of biases around one Bitcoin area, namely the price. Other areas you need to explore include stigma such as authority, reactive devaluation, stigma within the group, or adherence to Bitcoin's view from prominent political, business and financial figures. Duh. Bitcoin also has the big advantage of S and G, but about availability and timeliness regarding the often unfactual focus on E and ESG stories, environment, society, management. You can also observe the prejudice of. Yet another area is the ambiguity and functional fixation prejudice that influences thinking about Bitcoin's various features and ease of use. Most of the false reviews about Bitcoin are due to prejudice and noise. Understanding Bitcoin's prejudice and what we can do to distract it is a better understanding, greater acceptance of Bitcoin, and a better world than Bitcoin, which we believe allows. It's the road. Is it biased? Leave your comment below. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and see you in the next video.